I want to start with something that might feel a little uncomfortable to hear at first. You are not the problem. Hi, I'm Jenny, and this is my weekly expert talk on procrastination and empowerment. And today's talk is how to build a business that honors your subconscious. Now, I know that you not being the problem might not match the story you've been telling yourself, because if you're anything like the people I work with, you've probably been thinking things like, why can't I just get myself to do this? I know what to do, so why am I not doing it? Maybe I'm just not disciplined enough. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. And underneath that, there's often something heavier: doubt, frustration, maybe even a quiet kind of shame, because you're not starting from zero. You're intelligent, you're capable, you've built a career, people rely on you, people come to you for answers. And yet, when it comes to building your own business, you feel stuck. You hesitate, you overthink, you procrastinate. You tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and it still does not happen. And that gap between what you know you're capable of and what you're actually doing, it's exhausting because it doesn't make sense. And when something doesn't make sense, we tend to turn inward. There must be something wrong with me. But what if that's not true? What if you're not stuck because you're broken, but because you've been trying to build something incredibly vulnerable in a way that was never designed to support you? What if there is nothing wrong with your motivation, nothing wrong with your discipline, nothing wrong with your ability? What if there is actually a very intelligent part of you that's trying to protect you? Because here's what I want you to understand today. The part of you that is holding back is not your enemy. It's a part of you that learned at some point in your life that being seen, speaking up, putting yourself out there wasn't safe. And now, as you try to build a business that requires you to be visible, that same part of you is stepping in, trying to keep you safe. Not stuck, safe. So instead of asking what's wrong with me, I want you to start asking what part of me is trying to protect me right now. Because that question opens a completely different door. It moves you out of self-judgment and into understanding. And when you understand what's really going on, you can finally start to work with yourself instead of constantly fighting yourself. And that's where we're going to go today. We're going to look at why you feel stuck, even when you know what to do, what's really driving that start-stop cycle, and how to build your business in a way that actually works for you, not against you. So let's start here. If you're not the problem, then what is actually going on? Why is it that you can have the knowledge, the ideas, the desire to change your life and still find yourself not taking action? Because once you understand this part, everything else starts to make sense. So now that we've opened up that idea that maybe, just maybe, you're not the problem, let's look at what is actually going on. Because there's a reason that you can have the knowledge, the experience, the desire to change your life and still find yourself not taking the action you know would move things forward. And that reason lives in your subconscious. Now, I want to explain this in a really simple way. Your conscious mind is the part of you that sets goals. It's the part that says, I want to start a coaching business. I'm going to show up online. I am ready to change my life. But your subconscious mind is the part that decides whether that actually happens, because your subconscious is responsible for your patterns, your habits, your automatic responses, and most importantly, it is responsible for keeping you safe. Not successful, safe. And here's the key thing to understand. Your subconscious doesn't measure safety by what's logical. It measures safety by what's familiar. So if you've spent years being rewarded for staying quiet, being told not to speak up, feeling judged when you tried something new, being valued for getting things right rather than being visible, then your subconscious has learned it is safer to stay hidden than to be seen. So now, when you sit down to post on social media or talk about your coaching or put yourself out there in any way, the conscious mind is saying, this is what we need to do. But your subconscious is saying, this does not feel safe. And when those two are in conflict, the subconscious wins every time. Not because you're weak, but because it's designed to protect you. So what does that look like in real life? It looks like procrastinating when you meant to show up, overthinking instead of taking action, waiting until you feel ready, doing another certificate that'll help you take action, or starting and then stopping. And here's the part that can really feel confusing, because on the surface it looks like self-sabotage, but underneath it's actually self-protection. Your subconscious is saying, last time we were visible, that didn't feel so good. Last time we were judged and that hurt. Let's not put ourselves in that position again. So instead, it offers you safer alternatives. Scroll instead of post. Learn instead of act. Plan instead of being seen. Buying another program instead of putting yourself out there. And this is why you can know exactly what to do and still not do it. Because knowledge lives in the conscious mind, but action is driven by the subconscious. So you end up in this internal tug of war. One part of you is saying, I want this, I'm ready. And another part of you is saying, this does not feel safe, let's not. And the more you try to push through that, the more resistance you feel. So instead of asking, why can't I just make myself do this? What if you asked, what part of me is trying to keep me safe right now? Because that question changes your relationship with what's happening. It moves you out of frustration and into understanding. And when you understand what's really driving your behavior, you can start to work with it instead of constantly fighting against it. And once you see this, something else becomes really clear. The way you've been taught to build a business doesn't take any of this into account. In fact, it often does the exact opposite. Because once you see that your subconscious is driving your behavior, you also start to see something else. You start to realize that the way you've been taught to build a business was never designed for this. Most business advice is built on a completely different assumption. It assumes that if you just push harder, stay consistent, take massive action, override your fear, you'll succeed. And I can say that I have had, well, the early time in my coaching business, repeatedly was told, just to grit yourself, grit your teeth and carry on and leap into the unknown. Have the courage to leap massively into the distance. And all it did was make me procrastinate more. But what if that approach is actually the reason you feel stuck? Because it certainly was the reason I felt stuck. What if the problem isn't that you're not doing enough, but that you've been trying to build your business in a way that works against your subconscious instead of with it? So let's look at that. Let's look at the two very different ways of building a business and why one leads to burnout and procrastination and just, internally shouting at yourself, and the other leads to sustainable growth. So now that we understand it's your subconscious driving your behavior, let's talk about how you've been taught to build your business, because this is where the real disconnect happens. Most of us have been exposed to what I call the hustle model of business. And on the surface, it sounds really compelling. It tells you to be consistent, show up every day, take massive action, push through fear, don't let your emotions get in the way. Discipline equals success. Oh my God, the number of times people told me, just have discipline. And if you're someone who has been successful in your career, this probably feels familiar, because this is exactly how you're rewarded in the corporate world. Work harder, push through, get it done no matter what. But here's the problem. That model only works when the actions feel safe enough for your subconscious. And building a business is one of the most unsafe feeling things you can do, especially if you've had no exposure to it before now. It's a completely new thing that you've got to learn. And in this situation, you're suddenly extremely visible, open to judgment, stepping into the unknown, attaching your identity to your work, asking people to pay you. To your subconscious, that's not exciting. That's exposure. So when you try to apply the hustle model and just push yourself to show up, you create a massive internal conflict. One part of you is saying, let's go, we need to do this. And your subconscious is saying, nah, this is not safe, and I'm shutting it all down. And when those two collide, you don't get consistency. You get start, stop, motivation, crash, action, avoidance, confidence, doubt. And then, because you've been taught the hustle model, you make it mean something about you. I know I certainly did. And you say things like, I'm not disciplined enough. I just need to try harder. Why can everyone else do this but not me? But the truth is, it's not a discipline problem. It's a mismatch. You're trying to build a business using a model that overrides your subconscious instead of supporting it. So let me introduce you to a different way, the regulated model of business. This is where everything changes. Instead of asking, how do I push myself to do more? You start asking, how do I support myself to show up safely? Instead of overriding fear, you work with it, because you can't actually make fear disappear. It's a natural thing. It will always be there, no matter how much you don't like it. And instead of forcing consistency, you create conditions where consistency feels natural. Instead of taking massive, overwhelming action, you take small, safe, but repeatable steps. Because here's the truth. Your subconscious doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to safety. And when something feels safe, or even just a smidge outside safe, like just a tiniest amount outside safe, you don't have to force yourself to do it. You just do it. Think about something in your life that feels easy to show up for. You don't need motivation, you don't need discipline, because your subconscious isn't resisting it. That's the environment we want to create in your business. So, in the regulated model, success doesn't come from how hard you push, it comes from how safe you feel to keep going. And that changes everything. Because now consistency becomes easier, procrastination starts to fade, self doubt softens, action becomes sustainable. Not because you forced it, but because you've aligned with yourself. And I want to say this clearly because this is where a lot of people hesitate. This is not about going slower forever. This is not about avoiding growth. This is not about staying in your comfort zone. This is about expanding in a way your subconscious can actually come with you. Because when you build from pressure, you burn out. But when you build from safety, you grow. So now the question becomes, what does that actually look like in real life? How do you build a business where you're not constantly fighting yourself, where you're not stuck in that stop-start cycle, and where showing up actually feels possible? Because this is where we move from understanding into application. So I'm going to walk you through it. And I've got 5 powerful principles that will help you build a business and that supports your subconscious instead of working against it. And these principles are simple, but they are transformational. Because when you start applying them, you don't just change how you build your business, you change how you experience it. So now that we've explored the difference between building your business through pressure and building your business through safety, let's make this real. Because this isn't just a nice idea, this is something you can actually apply. So I'm going to walk you through the 5 principles that will help you build your business in a way that your subconscious can support instead of resist. And as I share these, I don't want you to try to do all of them perfectly. Don't try to do them perfectly. Just notice which one lands for you, which one feels like that's the thing I've been missing. Because not all of them will work for you. And really, I just want you to find one that feels the most comfortable for you to get started. So principle 1 is safety before strategy. Most people believe they need the right strategy to succeed. But here's what actually happens. You can have the best strategy in the world, but if it doesn't feel safe to execute, you just won't do it. So instead of asking, what should I be doing? I want you to start asking, what would feel safe enough for me to do right now? Because safety is what allows action. If posting on social media feels overwhelming, the solution isn't to push yourself to post more. It might be writing a post and not publishing it just yet, or sharing something small instead of something perfect. I often think it's a good idea to start with a quote. If you're uncomfortable posting on social media, finding a quote that is meaningful to you is a good way to start because you're still showing up in that quote. You're still putting yourself out there, even if they're not your words. They're words that are meaningful to you. And in some cases, there might be a safer place to post rather than on Facebook, your personal page or Instagram or wherever. Finding like a group. If you are in a mastermind group or some other smaller group of coaches or whatever group it is, and post there as a starting point. Get used to putting your words out there. And even though in one part of your mind you're saying this is just a small group, it's safe, you're saying it's safe to post to your subconscious. It's a really good starting point. So you don't need to jump straight into the wider world of visibility. You need to build safety with it. And as long as you keep repeating it, you keep doing, like for instance, posting in a group. If you start doing regular posts in the group, you're building that evidence that it's safe to post. So principle 2, micro momentum over massive action. The hustle model tells you take massive action. Also, many times in my past, I was told to take massive action. I was told to grit my teeth, to be brave, just take that massive leap. But massive action often creates massive resistance. It certainly did with me. Because your subconscious sees it as too much, too fast, not safe. So instead, we're going to focus on micro momentum, small steps, safe steps, but repeatable steps. Because small, consistent action builds evidence, and that evidence builds trust. So instead of saying, I need to launch my business, you might say, today I'm going to write these 3 sentences. And that might sound simple, but simple is what creates sustainability. And sustainability is what actually builds a business. And quite often when you start by saying, I'm going to take this teeny tiny small action, once you get into it, you may actually keep going and take more action. But you need to be telling your subconscious, I'm taking this teeny tiny amount of action. So principle 3, regulate before you take action. And this one changes everything. Most people try to take action while they're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, or frozen. And then they wonder why it feels so hard to do. Because when your system is out of regulation, your subconscious is focused on protection, not progress. So before you act, you support yourself. And that may look something as simple as taking a few slow, deep breaths, because that calms you down. Putting your hand on your heart, which is something I do clearly because I was already doing it. But reminding yourself, I am safe to do this. And like, if that doesn't work for you, and it is going to work for most people, but some people, you might have some music that you play. So there's some, it almost becomes your theme song. You play this music when you're about to start work, and it gets you energized to do work on your business. And if you play it on a regular basis before you start work, it's a trigger to your subconscious to let you start taking that small action, because the two get linked together. And my personal preference is tapping or emotional freedom techniques. So that's what I do to start my day, to get myself in the mode to do business. I don't do it all the time now, but when I was in the really hard times, where I was procrastinating really badly, I always found tapping as a really good way to change my emotional state into one where it felt okay to take the small actions. But you need to find what's right for you. I love tapping, but not everyone does. And you don't need to eliminate fear. You don't need to get rid of it altogether. You just need to bring it down to a level where you're calmer and can take action. So you just need to lower the intensity enough, basically, that your subconscious doesn't feel like it has to shut you down. And from that place, action becomes possible. And when you're doing something the same day after day, as I said, the two get hooked together, doing your emotional regulation and then action, they become linked. And it becomes much easier to keep doing it when you do the trigger that you're taking control of your emotions. So principle 4 is visibility as expansion and not a threat. And this is a big one because for many of you, visibility feels like danger. I mean, there was probably a time in your job, and it was certainly true for me, where I wanted to be seen more. I wanted to be acknowledged for my hard work. I wanted to be people to be showing me the respect that I felt I deserved. People were queuing up to give me really difficult work to do, but I wasn't getting the acknowledgement and reward for the quality of my work. But when I started my business, visibility was suddenly something like, oh my God, it was just terrifying. So for many of you, it's a similar thing. And starting your business and being visible, it means being judged, being criticized, being rejected. So your subconscious does what it's designed to do. It keeps you hidden. But here's the reframe I want to offer you. Visibility is not danger, it's expansion. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable, but uncomfortable doesn't mean unsafe. And the goal isn't to go from invisible to fully visible overnight, even though that's the hustle culture version. It's to go like, I'm out here, come and attack me. Well, not that that's what they say, but anyway, the goal is to gently expand your capacity to be seen. That's the difference in what I'm suggesting to you. So you need to take it step by step, layer by layer. Instead of asking, how do I show up perfectly? Ask, how can I be just a little more visible than I was yesterday? So take it slowly. Principle 5 is self-trust is the real business strategy. Most people believe they need more confidence, but confidence comes and goes, and it doesn't actually build until you take regular action. What actually sustains you is self-trust, trusting that you can handle judgment. You can learn as you go. You can recover if something doesn't work. You won't abandon yourself in the process, because when you trust yourself, you don't need everything to be perfect. You just need to begin. And when I started doing these weekly talks, I was new to doing an hour talk is quite something when you've never done one before, and finding the best way to do it took me quite a few talks before I got the hang of it and found what worked for me. And I was really terrified at the start of it, but I knew that I had the knowledge to share. I knew that I was doing it in a safe place. Like I was, because I'm doing this within a group and now I'm sharing it externally as well. But when I started, I was still terrified. I still had to like breathe and tap and get myself ready to do it. And I fumbled through the first few, and I still make mistakes all the way along. It never goes away. But I gradually felt more confident as it came along, and the quality of my talks has definitely improved over the time. So it's a really good example of how you can like learn to gradually expand your exposure to the world. Your business will not grow at the speed of your strategy. It will grow at the speed of your self-trust. So as you build your self-trust, you will be able to do more and more and expand your exposure to the world. So I want to pause here for a moment and let you bring this into your world. And I might get you to take a few deep breaths to start with. And now you're a little calmer. I want you to ask yourself, where have I been pushing instead of supporting myself? And if you want to write these down, I'll repeat them for you. Where have I been pushing instead of supporting myself? Where have I been trying to take massive action when I actually need smaller, safer steps? So where have I been trying to take massive action when I actually needed smaller, safer steps? And finally, what is one thing that would feel safe enough for me to do this week? What is one thing that would feel safe enough for me to do this week? Now, if you're on the recording, just pause it and have a think about those questions, but don't get stuck in them. Give yourself a couple of minutes and then come back again. So think about them with no pressure, no perfection, just awareness. Because awareness is where change begins. So now you have the principles. You understand what it means to build your business in a way that your subconscious can support. But the next question is, how do I actually apply this to my business, my life, my situation? Because knowing is one thing, but implementing is where everything changes. So in this next section, we're going to take these principles and turn them into something tangible, something you can walk away with and start using immediately. A simple, supportive way to build your business that works with you and not against you. So now you understand the principles. You understand why pushing has not worked and why building from safety changes everything. But this is the moment where most people get stuck again, because the question becomes, how do I actually do this without overwhelming myself? So what I want to give you now is a simple, supportive way to build your business that works with your subconscious, not against it. And I want you to think of this not as a rigid plan, but a gentle framework, something that holds you instead of something you have to force yourself into. So step one is identify your triggers. Before you decide what to do, we need to understand what currently doesn't feel safe, because your business isn't just practical, it's emotional. So I want you to ask yourself, what are the moments in my business where I tend to shut down? For most people, it's things like posting on social media, and it's true for me. I still have moments where I've got a post written and I've got a live, mapped out, and I still delay posting it or doing it. So it's very, very common. It's very, very common that posting on social media is something that will hold you up. But it can also be talking about what you offer. If you've got someone in front of you, or on Zoom or something, and you're getting the point to where you've got through the conversation and you're wanting to say not just what it is you're offering to them, but the price, that can be where you go, oh my God, I can't try that. So it can be about what you offer, but it can definitely be the price. Or it can be just in general being visible or feeling exposed to judgment. And if you notice yourself thinking, I shouldn't feel this way, let that go, because this is not something to fix. This is something to understand and work with. Because once you can see your triggers, you can start working with them. So this is really important to actually take the time to find what the triggers are. Is it posting on social media? Is it talking in front of people? Work out where it comes up. That's step number 1. So step 2, choose your safe action zone. Now that you know your triggers, we're not going to throw you straight into them. We're going to find your safe action zone. This is a space where you are stretching but not overwhelming yourself. You are moving forward but not shutting down. You are showing up but still feeling supported. So instead of asking, what's the most I can do, ask what feels safe enough for me to do it consistently. And that might be writing a post instead of publishing it. And sometimes having the focus on the writing instead of the posting actually allows you to do the writing. If you're telling your subconscious, I'm not going to post this, I just want to draft it out and get an idea of what I'm going to say, but not actually post it. And yes, you're lying to your subconscious pretty much. But your subconscious doesn't know that. Your subconscious is not that smart. So tell yourself you're writing the post and not publishing it. And then once you're feeling okay about that and you regulate your emotions again, then you can go and post it. Or another thing you can do is sharing something small instead of something deeply personal. So some people you see on Facebook, they're trotting out all manner of personal stuff, and you look at them and you think, oh my God, I could not say that kind of stuff about myself. So don't start there. Start with something really small that's not going to make you feel terrified. Just find something that's useful, but not making you too vulnerable. And the other thing is, start off with posting once a week instead of every day. Don't put yourself in that amount of pressure. And the other thing that helps with posting is actually batching posts. So writing posts, writing a number of posts, and then you don't have to, like, on the spot think, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to write? Get yourself organized and do multiple posts written, and then post them when you're ready. So this is not about playing small. This is about building capacity. Because when something feels safe, you can come back to it again and again. And that is what creates momentum. So step 3 is create a gentle rhythm. One of the biggest challenges I see is people trying to follow rigid schedules that don't match their internal state. Post every day, show up no matter what, be consistent at all costs. And it works for about a week or maybe a couple of days. Then life happens. Fear shows up, energy drops, and everything falls apart. So instead, we create a gentle rhythm, something that feels sustainable, supportive, and flexible. This might look like showing up 2 to 3 times a week, having a simple structure for what you share, giving yourself permission to adjust when needed. Consistency doesn't come from pressure. It comes from creating a rhythm your subconscious doesn't resist. Step 4 is build a regulation ritual. Before you take action, you support yourself. This is the piece that most people don't even think about and skip if they do think about. They go straight into the doing. And that's while they're feeling anxious, doubtful, or overwhelmed. And then they wonder why it feels so hard. So instead, you create a regulation ritual. Something simple you do before you show up. And it might be the breathing exercise of placing your hand on your heart and saying, I am safe to be seen. Or it can be grounding yourself in the present moment. Or it can be, as I suggested, Like finding some piece of music that lights you up, that you can then connect with taking action on your business. Or like Tony Robbins gets people to bounce up and down to change their state. I'm not as excited about that, but I know that that does work for people. So if bouncing up and down would help you, then you make that your thing that you do before you start your work. And I will obviously have my tapping. And this ritual doesn't have to take long, but it changes everything, because now you're not taking action from fear or trying to take action and then procrastinating. You're taking action from support, and your subconscious feels that difference, which is the important point. So step 5 is redefine success. And this one is so important, because if your definition of success is, did I get results? Did people respond? Did this work? Have I finished an entire enormous project? Because that's what a lot of people think. They any step along the way doesn't count until you've got the entire thing finished. But every time you don't get that unrealistic outcome, or you're getting something that you want, or you're not getting something that you want, but you're not being patient enough to allow it to come along, your subconscious reads it as, that wasn't safe, let's not do it again. And then you go back into that cycle again. So we need to shift the definition. Success becomes, did I show up? Did I support myself while I did it? Did I take a step that felt safe enough? Because when success is based on showing up, you can succeed every single time. And that builds confidence, evidence, and self-trust, which makes the next step easier. And each one, as you go along and taking that teeny tiny step, is building up your confidence, and it makes it so much easier to keep taking step after step. So I want you to take a moment and bring this into your world. I want you to ask yourself, what is one area of my business that currently feels unsafe? Let me repeat that again for you if you're writing that down. What is one area of my business that currently feels unsafe? And then what would my safe action zone look like there? So think about somewhere you've been doing avoidance and procrastination, and think of, what would my safe action zone look like there? And then what is one small step I could take this week that feels supportive instead of overwhelming? So what is one small step I could take this week that feels supportive instead of overwhelming? There's no rush, there's no pressure. You are building something sustainable. And this is where everything begins to shift. Because when you start building your business this way, something deeper challenges. You're no longer the person who pushes and burns out, starts and stops, doubts and holds back. You begin to become someone else, someone who supports yourself, trusts yourself, moves forward in a way that feels aligned. And this is not just a strategy shift, it's an identity shift. So let's talk about that and what becomes possible for you when you stop building your business against yourself and start building it with yourself. So before we finish, I want you to take a moment and just notice where you are right now. Because you walked into this conversation with a certain story about yourself. Maybe it sounded like, I'm a procrastinator, I overthink, I'm not consistent, I just need to try harder. And what I hope you can see now is that none of those things are actually who you are. They are patterns, they are protections, and they are responses. And that's probably one of the most important things I ever learned, that procrastination is not actually a problem, it's a solution. You can't solve a solution. You really can't. All those years I spent trying to solve procrastination, and I was trying to solve a solution rather than a problem. And it was only when I found the problem that lay underneath that and was triggering the procrastination that I was able to actually start making change. So all of those things are responses from a subconscious that has been trying to keep you safe. And when you see that, something starts to shift, because you're no longer the person who is broken, behind, not good enough, or incapable of making this work, because none of that's true. You are someone who simply hasn't been supported in the way you actually need to be. And from that place, a different identity becomes available to you. Not the version of you who forces or pushes or burns yourself out trying to prove something, but the version of you who supports yourself, listens to yourself, builds trust with yourself, and moves forward in a way that feels sustainable. The version of you who is safe to be seen, because this is the real shift. You don't build a successful business by becoming someone completely different. You build it by becoming someone who no longer abandons yourself in the process. And when you start building your business from that place, everything changes. You show up more consistently, not because you're forcing yourself to, but because it feels safer to be there. You take action, not because you've eliminated fear, but because you trust yourself to handle what comes up. You grow not through pressure, but through support. And that kind of growth lasts. So I want to leave you with a question. What would it look like to build your business without abandoning yourself? What would change if you stopped trying to push through and started learning how to support yourself instead? Because the version of your business is available to you. And if you're listening to this and something in you is saying, this is what I've been missing, then this is exactly the work I do. I support women just like you who are intelligent, capable, experienced, but feel stuck when it comes to building their own business. To move out of that cycle of overthinking, procrastination, self-doubt, and into a way of building that actually works with who they are. So if you're ready to explore this more deeply, I'd love to invite you to take the next step with me and come to my next webinar, the 3-day Courageous Pathway Challenge. I'm starting this from the 13th of April, 2026, in Melbourne time, 7 p.m. But I will be doing them every 6 weeks. So if you're watching this sometime later, just have a look on my Facebook site and you'll see when the next one is coming up. Because this is where we take everything we've talked about today and actually apply it in your life, to your patterns and your business. So you're not just understanding this, you're living it. And there's no pressure, just an opportunity to start building your business in a way that finally feels like you. So remember, you are not the problem. You've just been trying to build something meaningful without the support you actually needed. Now you have a different way, and you get to choose what you do with it. And thank you for coming along and listening to this talk today.